welcome to a new episode of Pablo Investigates. In today's episode, I'm talking to Jorge Rossy, multi-instrumentalist, drummer, composer, vibes player, piano player, and former trumpet player. I don't know if he still plays trumpet, but he started out by playing trumpet, then went on to become one of the most distinguished drummers of our time, then took a left turn and got into the piano and started a whole new career on that instrument. And this really amazed me and was inspiring for me, because that album that he put out called Wicca really had a huge impact on me. The way he played piano and the way he composed, really something else, and I hadn't heard somebody play like that before. And then moved on to reinvent himself again and play the vibes, and he found an incredible unique way of playing on the vibes, which I think combines a lot of his talents and a lot of his interests in that one instrument. So you have the percussive element of the drums, you have the melodic thing of the trumpet, and you have the harmonic thing from the piano. And there's nobody who plays vibes like Jorge. In fact, there's nobody like Jorge at all. I mean, he's such a great guy and so open and so down to earth and so humble. It's so great to talk to him, because he really likes to share those experiences and doesn't really share them, how do you say? I mean, he's so open with the whole spectrum of those memories and those experiences. So he'll share with you his doubts and his difficulties, and that was so useful to me at that time and still is. And what I actually wanted to tell you is, for a number of years we had been playing together as the backing band of the Focus Year auditions in Basel. So there's a great study program in Basel, and people apply to become part of that program, and they have to play with the band. And the band include me and Jorge and Dominique Giraud, a great bassist. So all these guys come in and we play with them. We rehearse with them in front of the jury. They hand out handwritten sheets, or we play standards, and they explain the music. And there he is, Jorge Rossy on the drums. Everybody is starstruck and is excited to play with him, although it's kind of a tense situation. But Jorge, in his great way, brings it down to earth all the time. So there was this one student who came in, handed out like a 6-page chart of some original tune he wanted to play without rehearsal, and he explains the structure and the arrangement to Jorge. And Jorge looks at him and says, "Don't worry, we'll fuck it up for sure." So that's Jorge to me in a nutshell. In a way, he tells us that we're all in it together, and that's such a great and embracing and welcoming, inclusive. That's the word. Such an inclusive thought and gesture. So I'm happy that I got to talk to him on my podcast, which is kind of a continuation of how we talk when we hang out or when we play together. And I'm really happy that we could share it now. I hope you enjoy this episode. And if you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, or tell your friends about it. That always helps. And if you would like to support the podcast even more, you can become a patron at patreon.com/PabloHeld. I'm sharing exclusive content with my patrons there. They get educational content, like me talking about various musical contents and showing things on the piano. Excerpts from masterclasses. They get early access They get monthly lead sheets. They get discount on my Bandcamp page and more behind the scenes stuff from the podcast. And also they get a discount on the Investigation Notes notebook. It's a little eco-friendly produced notebook with staff paper. Wait, staff paper. You'll see my notes here. I'm writing down all the things that I don't want to forget. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Take care. I'm very curious now. You have a upcoming tour with your Vibes Trio in just a few days, and I'm wondering what your process is of preparing for a tour, musically, spiritually, or whatever you're doing to be ready, because you always seem ready when something comes up, you know.
Well, I sure don't feel ready. No, I mean, I don't know. In terms of feeling ready, which I think is a deep question, no, I has been many years that I always feel that, you know, I never feel ready in the sense of feeling like, okay, I got it all covered, you know, and I got a full bag of tricks that I can pull out and I'm totally comfortable. It's like, no, I always feel that I don't have a choice. I have to be ready because I need to deliver. So I focus on what's the essential things that I need to deliver, which is not so much, you know, where it's not like we're driving, it's not heart surgery or, you know, driving a plane with 400 people. We just need to entertain people for an hour or a couple hours, if it's 2 sets. And that's all, you know. And then I just make sure that I have enough material that is going to carry me, you know, as I accumulate more experience, you know, on the vibes, or when you have a band that you have been playing more, then you can start taking more chances. But at the beginning, what I try to do is basically about the repertoire, you know, knowing that I have a repertoire that by itself, you know, if a bunch of nice tunes with arrangements that are going to be that the music is going to carry me anyway. If I just play the basic stuff, whatever I'm really comfortable, you know. Right. So that's what I get when I come from this sense of insecurity. It's like, oh my God, I'm not ready. It's like, yeah, I got a bunch of tunes that sound good. Of course, I got a killing rhythm section. So, but yeah, in that sense, the trio is a little different because with my quintet, I feel that if I don't play one note, a great gig is going to happen already, you know, because I got, you know, Mark Turner there soloing and, you know, the rest of the band. So it's like, I'm actually just unnecessary. That was my approach with the quintet, you know, make sure that I have a band that's going to sound great. I believe in my tunes, you know, they are good enough. Yeah. Make good arrangements and then just try to take pressure off my part. You know, that's how I dealt with the angst of being kind of beginner bass player and having Mark Turner and Al Foster and Pete Bernstein or John Majumpard and Doug Weiss in the band, you know. It's like I know all these guys are way more experienced than I am as a bass player, you know. So anyway, that was a little bit the thing. In trio, of course, even that I got incredible support from Robert and Jeff, but I have much, you know, at least a third of the responsibility, you know. So, but, you know, now I've been playing this thing for nearly 10 years. So now I feel I'm ready to do that. And in fact, even in 2017, I did like a trio tour with Doug and Al Foster too, Doug Weiss and Al Foster, which was a lot of fun. And now I know that I was able to handle that then. And so I feel very confident now.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that upcoming tour with Doug and Al. Back then it was upcoming, and you were kind of, you were talking about that. You find it to be a great challenge to be the sole harmonic instrument and melodic instrument, you know, and can be a very naked thing, like the vibes, you know. But whenever I hear you, it doesn't sound like that at all. Although it's sparse and everything, but there's just so much of the important stuff is in there to carry you and the listener and the band.
Cool. Yeah. You know what was very interesting is that right after I did that tour, you know, before the tour, I felt like that. Of course, I did a few gigs in trio, and and plenty of sessions here in Spain with friends, and that in trio, just to get used to the format too, and so it's not like it was the first time I played trio, but in terms of presenting myself on stage with a heavy rhythm section like that, you don't want to feel like a lightweight. No, sometimes that can happen. No, if you have great musicians in your band, of course it's much easier to play and the music is going to be better. But it can also happen that if you are extremely weak and you have somebody that's super strong, maybe that can even showcase your weakness by contrast even more, so it's like, oh wow, after hearing that incredible solo, it's like, now it's like, okay, when is the next bass solo or drum solo happening? I can wait. But anyway, it was great. I had a great time, but what's very interesting is just that when you have to deliver, you tend to do. Like I think I always have this idea. It's like you run much faster than you thought you ever would be able to run when you have a tiger coming after your ass.
Yes.
You just rise to the occasion for pure survival.
Yeah. So you rise up the stakes by hiring a rhythm section like that. And maybe also creating an environment where you have to come up with everything on your own without the back Mark Turner and Peter Bernstein, like being so naked as in the trio, right? Yeah,
and also by playing not at home comfortably or recording in the studio, no, on live. Just go, people is waiting, they see Al Foster there, it's like, okay, this is serious, and you gotta deliver. The expectation is high, so you just gotta do it, And then what was incredible is that after, we did not so many gigs. It was a short tour, but maybe 5 or 6 gigs. Then since they were already in Europe, I used that occasion to also record the second CD, Beyond Sunday. And then what was funny is that then after playing for a week in trio, when we went to the studio and I had to play in quintet, then I found that harder,
Oh, why?
Yeah, just because... it was such a change of role, I felt it's like, okay, now somebody else got the melody and somebody else is already comping. So, I wasn't confident enough in terms so much about don't get in the way of the guitar with my comping. I mean, so it came out nice, and
the record is great.
It didn't feel easy, It didn't feel like you could think it's like after playing in trio, back to the quintet is just a piece of cake. It's like, no, because they are different beasts, So I felt that my quintet chops were down because I got used to the trio thing, and I didn't want to go into. It wouldn't make sense to play the same way. It's like, okay, I got these great guys here. Let's make sure that they can be heard too.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I don't want to be tentative because I don't want to get in their way. So that's the kind of thing.
So you have to find the balance within each situation, I guess, huh?
Yeah, each situation is. That's how I feel also about every tune. It's like, feel many times. It's like, it's not that you suddenly one day harmony or voicings or It's like you have to find what works at least in my case. In every tune for every bar, you have to find what interesting voice leading things are there, or how the melody relates, or just what it means. You just have to spend time with the tune, like we like to spend time with anything or person we love, and that is very natural.
I think that's the first thing you said when I asked you how you prepare for this upcoming tour, is like getting the repertoire ready.
Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe you can get it more into detail about what that means for you.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of it it's happening today. This morning I was just waking up, and thinking, wow, the tour is gonna start. And yesterday I didn't play the vibes at all. The day before yesterday either. Doesn't look like today I'm gonna be able to, and it's interesting. But what has been happening already for more than 10 days is that I'm working on certain tunes in my head all day. And when I go to bed, I'm thinking of them, and I fall asleep with them, and I wake up often I'm dreaming on them. So I'm working on the repertoire. Yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So that's it. So I'm thinking, especially the tunes I'm working are a couple of new tunes that actually I haven't even told Jeff and, and Robert about, but it's going to be easy for them. Yeah, actually, it's a couple of Chick Corea tunes because I was thinking about doing something for Chick because we lost him and he was like an incredible. I mean, I had very few contact with him, but just did this one gig, but also a couple of recordings where I play a couple of tunes with him, or one of them, but just the few times that I got to hang with him, it was like so incredibly inspiring. I mean, and not to mention everything that he gives just by listening to him, even if you never meet him in person, it's all there. But anyway, and having Jeff playing with him for so many years, so I thought that would be adequate. So anyway, I've been working a little bit on Mirror Mirror.
Nice.
Yeah. And also on High Wire, the Aerialist, this tune that he recorded with Chaka Khan and Joe and Stanley Clarke, Lenny White and Freddie Hubbard.
Is it on the real book? No, that's not on the real book.
It
has
this record called Echoes of an Era.
Yeah, but doesn't have the real book font or the look or something.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't. I just transcribed the
I see.
tunes myself.
Yeah.
I mean, a student in Basel, a singer, Matteo. He one day he got a chart. He brought a chart to the class. In Basel, one of the lessons I do is this year I'm doing it with Anne Malcolm. I used to do it with Lisette Spindler, like where I'm playing piano, just comping for the singers. And this guy wrote the tune, and I knew it, but I never played it. But I have heard the tune, and I loved it. I fell in love with it again, and then his chart was pretty good, but I just double checked it. I always, whenever I have a chart, I like to listen to the recording and see if I can tweak it a little bit. And recently I was just trying to learn also there is a little bit of a shout chorus that Joe and Freddie play, and so I'm working a little bit on it. So yeah, that's those two, and then the rest is just refreshing the tunes on the record, So,
but how do you work by thinking about the songs? Like what? Because I do it too, and I'm curious how you do it, how you think about the songs, and because rehearsing in your mind is such a great way to prepare and to work on music, because you can do it very thoroughly, and you don't need any instrument, and you can do it while you do very boring stuff. And use the time,
Yeah, totally.
And afterwards, you go to the instrument, and then you can play it.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. I really believe in that. I remember reading in a book about Glenn Gould that it mentioned that when he was even 15 or something, but he was in a really high level, and his parents took him to a really great teacher, and the first thing the teacher told him is like, okay, 80% of your practice time is going to be away from the instrument. And since then, even so early, he learned the music always outside. And as you described, when he went to play, it was already everything there. You just play, everything is already memorized. It's already, you can play it in tempo the first time. Boom. It was like, whoa, that sounds right. But it's true, no? It's like language, I think. And because that way, it means that it's in you, and there is nothing mechanical about it, no? Not so much muscular memory, none of that. It's just that you understand the music, and then you can say it differently. Like if you tell a story, you can even change some words. And it's really spontaneous. No? But yeah, it takes a while. That's why, spending some time with the music, in your mind. So. Yeah, many times now, something that intrigues me a lot, because also just since this recording, I started playing with 4 mallets. So I have this possibility, so I'm trying to explore that. So I just imagine many times, it's like, okay, if I play the melody and I just do two voices, you know, and then imagine them, or play them without the instrument, just imagine what two could sound, what happens intervallically, whatever. And then if I do three voices, what happens, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And just stuff like that, just to get used to the range, you know. Then I realize if I'm doing three voices, when the melody goes to the bottom, sometimes you cannot really fit three, or it doesn't make sense. But and it's like, okay, here it's just going to be two.
Yeah.
Just whatever. The same process that you would find in the instrument, but the instrument is not there. So just.
Have you also found that it improves your hearing, your ability to hear better?
Of course. Yeah. So it's always working on in-ear training. Yeah.
That's cool. It's like mental voice leading training, what you're doing. It's very cool.
Totally.
Very cool. I think we got to know each other in 2012, I think. That was our first gig at the Bird's Eye.
Oh yeah.
And
wow.
I think it wasn't so long ago that you started picking up the vibes. And I think back then I already asked you a little bit about it, but I want to know more about the process of learning a new instrument, because I feel like I love as you know, I love the way you play the drums and the piano. We have to get into Wicca later on, but and I love the way you play the vibes, and I feel like the vibes really puts together all the things you do so great on drums, piano, and I haven't heard you play the trumpet, but I assume there's a lot of connection within the vibes, bringing all those things together. And
totally.
You know, so I'm curious what your process was of learning that instrument. What was important for you to be able to do, and also maybe who were people you looked up to, or do I remember correctly that you didn't really get so much into other vibes players so much? I don't remember quite.
Yeah. No. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, well, the whole story is that I actually started playing vibes a little bit at 14 because I was studying classical percussion, and you know, and yeah, I was attracted to it. The idea there was a very nice Musser vibraphone in the school. But then, you know, it was just starting. So my father got me a vibes that we found but it wasn't full bars, you know. So the sound was kind of like, you know, not so much dynamics, you know, kind of disappointing. So I played it for about a year or two, and then I was like, carrying this big thing, you know, kind of like the drums, you know, this big thing that you have to set up but that wasn't satisfying the sound. I felt dynamically, I don't know. And also for ear training wasn't so great because it's like the piano, very visual, no? So I started seeing myself playing a bunch of scales up and down, you know, like learning tunes like that, learning the chord scales, and then feeling that I was falling in the temptation of playing a lot of notes without really singing them that much. And then it happened that I fell in love with the trumpet, you know, at 16, and for those reasons, highly portable, great ear training, you know, and extremely expressive. I would listen to Miles or Kenny Dorham, and it's like, man, these guys with one note say so much more than I do with like a bunch of notes. It's like, this is what I need to learn, you know. And so then the vibes kind of just fall, you know, so I really was totally in love with the trumpet for 10 years, you know. Then fast forwarding, you know, this was at 16. When I was 24, nearly 25, I went to Berkeley as a trumpet student. But then there I met all these great musicians, you know, that were there, you know, Mark, Chris Chick, Seamus, Kurt, Joshua Redman was around too. Anyway, a lot of amazing musicians, and these guys were very sweet and supportive also of my trumpet playing, but they never called me to play as a trumpet player. They guys, oh man, you sound nice, man. By the way, are you available for a session after on drums? I went, okay. So, you know, that I got the message. And no, I just felt that as much as I was in love with the trumpet and I could play it, and I was, getting better slowly and everything, but I just felt that I wanted to play with these guys, and and I also believe in this thing. No, many times it's not so much about you and your dreams and your ideas and aspirations. It's like, if we live in a society, and if you feel that in the place where you live or around you there is people who appreciates what you do or needs you to do something that you are good at it, or that at least they think that you can help, then that's going to make you happy, no? Because then you feel that you are useful, you are contributing something. So anyway, it was pretty clear that as a drummer at that point, at least, I contribute much more than the trumpet. So yeah, and naturally the trumpet fall to the side, So I became full-time drummer, and also playing drums with these guys. It was so much fun, because they were so responsive, and I felt that I could participate on making great music with them as a drummer. So at the end of the day, that's the thing. It's not about the drums, or it's not about me. It's about the music. So that was the way it happened. It was much later when I struggled with tendinitis, maybe in '94. So maybe 5 years after that then I had to stop practicing, and then I realized that the less I practice, the better I played. And then it's what I'm going to do with all this free time, So, then maybe I can go back to my original idea of, before I went to Boston, when I went to Spain, and I wanted to be kind of a complete musician, and I felt like, okay, trumpet, I lost my embouchure. I don't feel like also getting back into that and doing long tones, to keep my embouchure going on. I always loved the piano. I already kind of play piano a little bit, and I thought, I just love the piano. Let's get into that. So
that's 94.
I think, Just in 94, 95 is when I really felt that I really wanted to embrace the piano. Yeah, exactly. 94. I was 30 years old. Exactly.
That's when the trio with Brad started, right? Around that time.
Yeah. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So then, but then I was just thinking about, studying the piano a little bit more, but didn't have so many, I never really had big aspirations of anything. Just wanted to play. So yeah, that's when that started. And then what happened is a few years down the line, maybe 5 years after that, then it became like an obsession. Then I was so much into the piano, just completely obsessed with it. And I started, studying with Sofia Rossoff and
what was that like?
Well, it was just amazing. Yeah. Ethan Iverson and Mike Kanan, both of them, told me about her, and they kind of recommended me to go and told her about me so I could get a spot to see her. And it was life-changing, not only for the piano. Well, it's like the thing, she was so incredible, so perceptive about the way I see it, about how you relate to the instrument and to music. How do you experience making music with the instrument, and she can see all kinds of conflict or not, or what's good about it, and she encourages it. It was magic, just playing for her, because she would just ask me to play anything, it could be a standard or a piece that we have been working on, Scriabin or Ravel or Bach, or sometimes just improvise freely, which is something that I was extremely scared of for improvisation. And I felt that she always made me play to raise my level, to sound better than I would do even when I was alone or in any other situation, And also the whole idea of outlining. That's a lot of what I practice without the instrument is outlining too,
Say again?
Outlining.
And what does it mean?
Outlining. Yeah, it means basically, if you just play, you can decide you can do it in infinite ways, no? But basic outlining would be, okay, you can take any piece of music and you just play like just play on the first beat of every 4 bars or every 2 bars or the first beat of each bar. And that's when you play. And what you play, you can decide that too. You can say, I just play the melody note, or I can play the melody note that would sound at that moment, and the bass, so it would be 2 voices. Or you can say, I play the melody note and I can play the bass and 1 guide tone that's important, that's not in the melody. That way you got a 3-note voicing, you know?
Yeah.
Or same with, so you decide, you know. As was pretty interesting too, is just to think is like, okay, if in that bar there are 3 melody notes, I make a voicing with those 3 melody notes.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing, you know, because it's really, you really break down music to these kind of combinations. You start thinking of harmony as all these little colors that is actually the melody. You don't realize that harmony and melody are the same thing. It's like, you know, it's just add rhythm to it to have shape. But in terms of the notes that you pick in order to make a melody are the harmony, especially once you add a bass, and that's it, you know. And then you realize, you know, then what happens with the other voices, no? So yeah, I think that's the kind of things that's for me is when I started to understand what's actually the real meaning of voice leading. You know, I would be in the past when I would hear piano players and guitar players or people talking about voice leading or horn players too. I was like, what are they talking about? Okay, the 3rd and the 7th. So, yeah. So what? Yeah. Okay. But leading, I mean, it's not that you can lead. You know, you just play them and they are already written down. Okay. Try to you know, to play the chromatic things, you know, or to try to minimum movement. Yeah. But there must be more than that. And then it's like, okay, once you add the melodic material to the voicing, then you realize more. No, there is these combinations, which intervals happen, which octave do you put it? All these things make a difference. No? And again, I don't see any rules, or it's more just like just listen to how it sounds, listen what combinations are available to you, check it out how it resonates in the instrument, and then eventually you get familiar with the instrument enough where you can even do it in your head and more or less imagine what's going to be or see what's possible at least. No? So, yeah.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing the memories of studying with her. That's really interesting.
Great.
So we were on our way from your obsession of the piano, which eventually leads up to you doing one of my favorite albums, Wicca.
Oh, wow.
And we have to keep in mind that we are still on our way to the vibes, but I think we're reaching or we're headed towards Wicca. And let's go there.
Yeah, well, that's what's interesting. You know, my whole thing with the piano is that, especially, you know, at the time I was playing with Brad. So, of course, for me to imagine myself as a serious piano player, professional, it was kind of like, come on, you know. It's just, like, I know that even if I lived 200 years, I would never play the piano with you know, the way that Brad would play it when he was 10 years old, you know. it's just a completely different league. But that's the thing. I was like, well, you know, I don't need to compete with him. Although, of course, this would happen once I started playing with gigs, you know. Of course, people in the audience, the comparison would always be there because they associate me with Brad, you know. This is Brad's drummer playing piano, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
So, but I was like, okay, that might be in their heads, but doesn't need to be in mine. You know, the reason I play piano is not to be better or worse than anybody else, is that I'm happy when I'm at the piano. I just love this shit, you know.
Yeah.
So that's all it is.
Yeah.
So,
what were some of the first gigs on piano?
Yeah, I remember this very first gig. It was a great band because it was with Yeah, that's the thing. I got this little gig in a little club in Sabadell, close to Barcelona, in a little town close to Barcelona, and it was with Natsu, a great alto player. You know that I have trio with him. He also plays great drums, and he plays very nice piano too, actually.
Yeah.
But it was with Nat on alto sax, and with Javier Colina on bass, and David Shirgu drums. So I already got a great rhythm section, a great solo. So again, similar thing to what I did with the vibes later. These guys in trio would sound great, even if I don't play one note. So not so much pressure.
Yeah.
And it was, that was a revelation, because I felt that it made me play so much better to play in front of an audience. Because what I was doing, I was playing a lot at home alone, but also I started playing with students, people who were younger guys like Jordi Matas at the time, this great guitar player. He came once, and I would just do sessions with them. I just would play with them and be playing piano all the time, but just with friends at home. But then that's, I think, especially with the piano, there is so much available to you there. I felt the danger of just to keep looking for stuff and playing a lot of stuff and having a lot of ideas, but not organizing them in order to make a statement, to be too much in discovery mode, just, let's see, what about this? And wow, all these things open up to you, But then for the listener, that can be kind of boring. It's like, you're here like a little boy in a candy store, but tell me something, man, So I felt that having an audience, it makes you commit to an idea and follow through, because these people is listening to you. So don't get distracted with candy, man. Just we're here. Tell us something. Make a clear statement. Go to the point. And then
that's something I so admire about your playing. Is like whenever you start a solo, or end a solo, or within the solo, but usually, of course, it strikes me when you start a solo. The most, I think. I listen to your quintet, for example, and the moment you start your solo is as clear as it can be, and such a strong statement always. Like the way you come in is always so strong and so clear, and that's something I really admire, and I wonder how to get closer to that.
Well, I don't know. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, well, I guess desperation. No, what I mean is that, I that's what I feel. I feel the responsibility of making that, and that's actually the only thing I can do, because I think that's maybe, one of the results of shifting instruments and then having to present yourself on stage, and by being an experienced musician and taking it seriously, So for me, that's the thing. I don't want to bore the audience, I don't want to feel like the pain in the ass guy, He's like, okay, just because he has friends, good musicians, because he's, a pretty good drummer, and now he wants to do this thing. And I know that would be a danger, So I'm very respectful of the audience time and of my peers' time, So, I feel that I got to say something. So, but at the same time, that's the thing, that's one of the models that I thought, like, knowing of my enormous limitations, then I realized it's like, okay, Brad Mehldau is amazing, and I love his playing, of course. I also love Art Tatum. I love Keith Jarrett. I love Hank Jones. I can't touch these guys, this shit's so aware. But then there are other piano players that I love, and I'm not saying that I'm at their level, but it seems not so unattainable, or that at least an imitation of that, and then Jobim was a big one, Also Horace Silver, maybe these two thinking is like, man, Jobim has such a beautiful touch on the piano, and of course as a composer, these beautiful tunes, and where there is just like a little voice or things that you can orchestrate on the piano that sounds really good. But also just as a piano player, his touch, and I was like, man, that sounds so beautiful. And this is just as enjoyable as Art Tatum, So,
exactly, yeah.
So that's just So that could be a good model for me to make me feel, confident that if I pursue this, So that has been my model, in every instrument, actually always, just to try to make a statement that was also lyrical, in the sense, lyrical meaning with a strong emotional connection. So something that actually is meaningful to me. So what you described, that's my priority, So, so that's I guess I get that to a certain level. I have many limitations, but because I feel that if I don't deliver that, it really doesn't matter, If I play many notes or few notes, but if they don't mean shit or they don't mean anything to me, then what's the point, So that's the priority, and I think that's that's what I do.
Exactly. Okay, so Wicca, what was the compositional process for that? Because I feel like within your compositions you have a very, very unique ways of maneuvering harmony and getting it together with melody. Very, very unexpected usually for me. It's like, how did he think of that chord in this moment? I never would have thought, to go there. But the choice sounds so beautiful and so unique and so you. So for me, it's always the question, like, how do you get there? Of course, we combine all of our influences, but I'm wondering how it looks like when you compose.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like with composition, I started composing a little bit when I was playing trumpet right before I went to in the 80s, but very little. And at that time, my compositions were extremely derivative. Like each tune that I would write would be completely different from any other tune I wrote before. But completely, it was very clear to know. It's like, okay, this tune I'm trying to imitate, Wayne Shorter from Atlantis, and this tune I'm trying to imitate like this Terence Blanchard record that I got, and this other tune I'm trying to imitate Lee Morgan, and it was extremely, just kind of exercises of trying to. I would have the color of a tune that I love from a record, and then try to write something in that vein, completely by ear, because. I felt that I also had this thing that I felt that if I write anything that is kind of like clear functional harmony, that's something that I understand why write it. Is like, man, that's too obvious, which I think is a mistake, of course. When I was more mature, I was like, no, you should be able to write a calypso, with 1, 4, 5, all diatonic, okay, maybe you can make the 2 dominant, okay, the 6 dominant, but only that, but that came later, but so my tendency was always to find colorful harmony, even in that early stage, And then when I went to Boston, I wrote a couple of tunes, but then I met all these guys, and again, it's funny, like even that I try to not be competitive, but I guess it's really hard not to in this society. So either I wasn't consciously competitive, but the fact that I felt intimidated by great players and great composers who were around me, like Kurt or Seamus or Chris or all these guys, writing great tunes, it made me self-conscious. I was like, man, how can I go to show one of my shitty tunes to these guys, I felt embarrassed. So, which is funny, this thing of embarrassment, if you look down at it, what it is competitiveness, You're competing with them. Not to be better, but you feel that, something is better than something else.
You're not living up to something else.
Yeah, it's not good enough, It's like good enough for what, So anyway, it was really hard for me. I was super intimidated. I love these guys. I love their music. And whenever I got to the piano also, I would have that problem about composing the thing of too many possibilities. I would come up with 4 bars and then I would spend 3 hours and, I could do this and I could do this, but which one? And I would accomplish nothing, So I kind of totally stopped composing, for like about 10 years, And I remember a great conversation with Chick Corea, actually, about this. We were just having breakfast in the Red Sea Festival in Israel, in Elad, and like at 5 a.m. or something. I had been actually all night just at the piano after the jam session. When the piano was available finally at 3, I just stayed there.
Nice.
and then I went, and before going to bed, I had breakfast, and then Chick was the opposite. He just woke up really early, So we sit for a second and talk just for a few minutes. He was super beautiful, very gracious, and he asked me, "So do you compose?" And I said, "Oh no, man, I wish." And he says, "You should, just without any expectations, just to know who you are, to know where your ears go, because we all have certain taste, and even if you don't play your tunes, but then when you write certain ideas, you start to see patterns. It's like, oh, I like these colors, and then that will also." Just as an improviser, you will find what's your territory, your vocabulary. I thought that was so inspiring.
That's nice, yeah.
One of these things, I will never forget it. So it was really encouraging. So I tried a little bit, and so that was a nice push. But then what made all the difference was studying with Guillermo Klein.
You studied with him?
Yeah. He came to Barcelona, and then he started doing some... in a school here in Bellaterra, in a suburb of Barcelona. He did some composition lessons with a group of like about 10 people, of different instrumentalists. So all the students would form a band, actually. So the thing is that, which was completely great, is that there were long class lessons, like 3 or 4 hours, So the first hour he would always come with something really well prepared, where he would show us like either some Beethoven sonata or like the Symphony of Psalms of Stravinsky or something like that, And he would break it down in a way that it the Symphony of Psalms, he wrote it like it looked like a real book page, And then you play those chord symbols and the melody, and it sounded really close. You could totally get the vibe of the tune, So it was magical. It really demystified it. It made it much more available, and so that was amazing. And then after that, we would get inspired by that and get some ideas, and then he would ask the students to write something with certain parameters, very specific parameters, and right away. So, okay, you guys have 5 minutes to write something with using these intervals, for example, or with this idea, now you have 10 minutes, and sometimes would be something, okay, you have 10 minutes, just write a blues, or write a ABA using, So it would be very specific parameters that distract you from the whole idea of being creative or expressing
getting
yourself.
Inspiration. Yeah.
Fuck that, you have no time. And also takes the ego, out of, because then just everybody does it. Everybody feels embarrassed after, because then you have to try it in front of everybody, and we all try. But it was great, because then you realize how the ego is like that, and this competitive thing about being embarrassed of not coming up with something great in front of everybody. It's like, well, it's just, then that's the idea, is that he would say that I didn't ask you to write a blues that you like. You don't have to like it. You just have to write a blues. 12 bars. If you don't like it, well, that's your problem, And that's so great. That was like perfect medicine. So then I realized, after just taking a couple of 3 months, these courses lasted 3 months, so I do 2 or 3 of them. Since then, whenever I have to write, I write. After 10 years of being unable to write anything, that was like perfect medicine. So that was amazing. So most of what I wrote was starting in that class, and also what was perfect was write without the piano, because the piano is what was killing everything. Just that too many possibilities. So it's like, no, take that toy, don't get distracted. Try to hear something. Let's see what it is that you hear. And again, I had idealized this idea. It's like, the only people who writes without the piano are either geniuses or, professionals who do it all the time, you know, and of course you are so used to, but, you know, I've written very few times how it's impossible that I can do it. And it's like, well, try it, do it, you know, just write what you hear, you know, and then you realize that, yeah, that actually forces you to write stuff that's simpler, which for me, it was a challenge too. I always try to write complicated, super colorful, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, he was just so helpful, so much wisdom, you know. I could go on and on, you know, but a lot of stuff. Guy. Yeah, great guy, great musician, and great teacher. So great composer. So that's basically everything, you know. That's what I started. A lot of these tunes in Wicca, the tune Wicca, I remember that was an exercise. I think I don't remember now what was the premise, but just write an 8-bar melody, I think. And then I remember that I thought, and then just harmonize it in a couple of different ways. And I ended up harmonizing it in maybe 5 or 6 ways. And that's what Wicca is, no? It's like the same little melody with a bunch of different chords that make it sound different. So yeah, that was an exercise for Guillermo. Sexy Time too, that was one of the, is maybe the first the tune that I wrote in his, no, probably not the first, but one of the first ones. And it took about 5 minutes to write, you know. It was a great exercise. It was like, yeah, okay, I remember that was a rhythm exercise. So you write a 2-bar rhythm, you know. That's it.
Yeah.
And then, okay, you repeat these 3 times and then write the response. So, second time, third, fourth. Oh, it's actually...
Yeah, it's the same. It's
here,
the same
even the same one.
Yeah.
He said,
but
you can do the same, or you can do, you know, so in this case, I did it even simpler.
But the chords change.
You know? Of course, yeah. So, but that's the exercise. First, you write the rhythm, and then, and then different rhythm for the B, maybe a 4-bar phrase instead of a 2-bar, you know, or an 8-bar phrase of 2 4-bar phrases. And then, okay, then just put pitches, and then you got the melody, and then, okay, put harmony or put a bass line. And it's so easy, and you immediately get the big picture, you know, as opposed to be on the piano and trying to find some super cool voicings, and you have 2 bars, and then where this goes, it could go anywhere, you know. It's like, no, you have the whole structure just with 2 bars. Boom, you just develop the whole thing, you know. So it's a great exercise. I wrote a bunch of tunes with that exercise, but that was the first one, and I remember it. And it was one of the first ones that I wrote, without the piano. And I remember I wrote it in the hotel room, and I was so intrigued. I was like, okay, I just go for it, you know. It's simple enough. That's why there is not that many chords too. Just try to make sure I don't put too many chords. Although the bridge gets kind of involved. But then I thought, okay, tomorrow I go to the piano, and probably I will have to change half of this shit. And the surprise was that I went to the piano and I changed absolutely nothing. And that started happening with everything. And it's like, okay, yes. So sometimes if I change something, it would be just to take a little bit, to simplify even a little bit more, you know, think, oh, this is not necessary, you know. So, yeah. And then in terms of harmony, many times, if I have a melody like that, I remember the harmony. In this case, it was pretty simple, so I really heard it. But I just tried to hear a bass note, you know. And then again, once you have one bass note that could be related to that or not, I could think of a bass melody. Yeah. Really, that just by itself, you know, that sounded cool. Kind of a little bit of both things. And then you immediately start seeing, okay, oh, this is this chord, or this could be this chord, you know. And many times what I do once I have a melody and a bass note, if the melody doesn't move too much, so it doesn't define too much what the chord is about, then I try to come up with a third voice, or a second voice, no, besides. So third, bass, melody, the third voice, just to complete a little bit the chords, and then with that, you're done. That's it, and then it's again, that's voice leading. That's when I started writing. I really understood, of course, that's what really voice leading means. Just to define the colors, no, with voice by voice, like each voice counts. This whole idea of chords as something associated to a scale. I mean, it's okay, but doesn't have to be like that. And of course, in music, is not like that most of the time. So that's just a very specific sound that you don't want to sound like. Nobody wants to sound the same all the time. So yeah.
How did you come up with the personnel for the album?
Oh yeah. That's an interesting thing. You know, in that time, a lot, because my ethics, you can call it ethics or you can call it insecurity. I had this thing where I just wanted to play with people who asked me to play with them. You know, even there were musicians that I would love how they play, but I was intimidated. You know, and no, or maybe a matter of pride. You know, like I didn't want to be in this situation where, you know, somebody is playing with me because he's my friend and wants to do me a favor, but they don't really dig my piano playing so much. So I would just play with people who ask me to play with them, you know.
Ask you to play with them on piano or on drums? On piano.
No, of course, no. If they ask me to play on drums, that's exactly what I wanted to avoid. That somebody is like, you know, is putting up with my piano player, hoping that someday I will play drums with them, something like that, you know. It's like, no, it's like, if you think that you have use for me, you know, for my piano playing in your band, then I'll be there, you know. Yeah. And then it happened, I got lucky enough that actually Albert Sanz asked me to do something. He said, like, he called me one day and he told me if I would be into the idea of playing a gig. First, it was just one gig. And we were both teaching in Musikene in this school in San Sebastian. We were both teachers, and he said, like, you know, I can get a gig in this little club in Donosti with RJ Miller, and then I can play Hammond and you can play piano, and we can play half of my tunes and half of your tunes. And I was like, wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. Wow, great, beautiful, thank you. I was super excited because I love his playing. Yes. And I love RJ. So we did the gig. It was a lot of fun. And then right away, I told him, look, you know, I know that this is kind of a co-leader situation, but you already have a great trio with RJ and Masa Kamaguchi. Yeah. And I was thinking that, you know, I wouldn't, would you mind if this was my trio? Like I just leading this, and he was like, no, great, let's do this, because I would like to record it and do a record. So let's do it, great. So he was totally into it, you know. So yeah, it was a great big step for me, you know. And this happened just at the time when I was studying already. I had been studying with Guillermo, and I already had a bunch of tunes. So in Wicca, as you know, already half of the tunes are Albert's, is that first repertoire, you know, and half are mine. And that was it, you know. And then after is when we did Giuliano's suite in quintet, actually, with Felix and Chris Chick. Yeah. That was the next step, you know, where they are all my tunes. Then, you know, I already did that, and then I felt confident enough to call Chris Chick, because I felt it's like, well, this sounds good enough. I think Chris might be okay with that, you know. But by then I had been already playing piano for 10 years practically, you know. So it took a while for me to go. And Chris, as you know, he's like the sweetest. He's an incredible musician, but also the most, you know, generous and not judgmental guy you can. But still, the problem wasn't in Chris. It was in my head, you know, my own insecurity that I had to fight.
Wow. Did you ever, I'm curious now, did you ever ask Brad for advice on piano?
Yeah, a little bit. Sometimes, when during the time we would be in the road, and yeah, he gave me very, very cool tips sometimes. I remember once he just showed me, yeah, whenever you play a tune, it was again about voice leading. It's like, just try to find, you play the melody and you play the bass note, and just find those voices that are important, and finding which octave and what disposition it makes it sweet, and once you've done that, when you can play the melody, then you got it. You got what it is, Just super basic was very important. That's probably the main one. And I think he demonstrated a little bit with playing in the street where you live a little bit. You see, and then he told me also something about using sixths sometimes, just to get away from just blocks of chords, It's like, you can just move with six around, around the scale or around the tonality a little bit, and just do what it was. So it was basically, he didn't say much, but those two things I remember, and the rest was just watching him and listen to him.
With Wicca, I mean, your piano playing has really influenced my piano playing. Totally.
That sounds weird to me.
No, it's very true.
I'm so honored.
That's really an important album for me, and also like I was just amazed about how you approach the instrument, and it was really, it wasn't long ago that you sent me most of the sheet music from the record. It was so cool to see that some moments where I thought, wow, he's just improvising this great killing melody, and I saw it's actually written. And then the other way around happened, where I thought like, this has to be a written down melody. This is killing, and then I see, no, he just made it up.
Wow.
So you really get to that what you were talking about before, like the Jobim type of playing a nice fill that could easily be the next Jobim tune. You get into that vibe so much when you play the piano, and the vibes obviously. But that was really something that struck me when I was then going back to that recording and looking at the sheet music, how you wrote it down, and then noticing all the moments where I thought, this must be composed.
Wow,
or this must be improvised. But you play with this so much, and it really speaks to the strength of your melodic choices, I think.
Oh, cool. That's so interesting, right? Because I remember that when I was very young, I was always been, big fan of Weather Report and Joe Zawinul. And I remember reading an interview where he was addressing that. He said that with Weather Report, one of his goals was that nobody would ever clap after a solo, because he didn't want the audience to know when there was a solo, that he didn't want the audience to know what was improvised and what was written. Yeah. Actually. So yeah, that's something that for me also is important. I was thinking, even in some of these tunes, it's pretty obvious there is still the format of traditional, tune solos and that. But in some of them, I started writing interludes, or like Wicca is is a case like that, where it's more through compose. Even right away. In this phase from Wicca, that's something that I wanted to get a little bit of that,
El Bardo has one of the most iconic moments like that for me. Like when you go into the da 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 da.
Oh of course,
That's something like, wow, what a killing solo. And then I find out
it's not a solo.
when we played it, I was like, oh, I have to learn this now. Shit.
It's written down.
It's written down. But the way you get into it, like it's Jeff was talking about something that struck him about Chick Corea's. Like sometimes it seemed like he would already be playing when he hadn't really sat down on the bench yet, like falling onto the piano and seeing what happens. That kind of feeling I got from that moment from El Bardo, It's like, because it seems like you jump into it, you know. It's really cool.
That's a shout chorus. That's what that is.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
That's
makes sense.
So I wrote it like as that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how much did you play live with the trio, with the Wicca trio?
Oh yeah, I don't remember now exactly, but yeah, we did a few tours. We actually, I remember we went to Morocco, which is the only time I've been there. So we played in Rabat, and we played in Casablanca, and in Tangier, and we played in Sevilla. We played in Madrid. We played, we did some tours in Spain. And then after, I remember, no, but that was later with the quintet. Yeah, with, But, or no, did I play trio first? Maybe, I don't know if it was trio and Felix. No, that was maybe later. Yeah, exactly. After Wicca, well, it was the trio with Albert and RJ, but also Rafi Garabedian and Felix. Then we played in Boston, and we went up to Maine, because,
nice.
And in Brooklyn, New York a little bit. And So we had a good run. We play a bunch of gigs, and it was amazing. It's for me. I remember just so happy, like going on the road with like my folder with tunes and thinking, it's like, okay, I made it happen. No, because that for me, that's what it means. Just to lead a band, you need the tunes. For me, it's all about the tunes, the repertoire. I know, Art Blakey, Just Messenger is a great band leader, and somebody else writes the tunes, but I totally respect and admire that, but that's not what I wanted to do. I felt it's like if I'm going to lead my band, I got to write the music,
Yeah.
So after having this like fear of writing for so many years, that I didn't write anything for 10 years, I was so grateful to Guillermo for curing me of that, my own ego shit. And then suddenly it's like, man, this is magic composition, you just sit down, write whatever crosses your mind without trying to put your ego, getting your ego in the way. That's another great advice. It's like, you don't think seriously about it. You don't need to identify with it. Just write down whatever crosses your consciousness in that moment so it doesn't get lost.
Yeah.
And then work with it a little bit, polish it till you can make peace with it and you're okay. And then it materializes. You have this piece of paper that has this thing that every time you put it in front, you give it to some guys, and it happens.
Yeah.
And you have a band.
Yes.
And then here, now you can go on the road, and you're going to Morocco with Albert and RJ to play because you sat down and wrote these little things, It felt so magic. It felt like...
And it's therapeutic, right? I mean, dealing with yourself and dealing with your insecurities and writing for them or against them sometimes.
Yeah, totally. It's really, truly magic. And also what Chick said, then, after you write a bunch of tunes, you start singing, it's like, I like these colors. I like the minor 6 chord. And
yes.
I like this thing, and I like this thing. Whatever it is that you and then you can expand from there.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, saying I'm gonna learn a new instrument, and at least for a little time, turn my back on the other instrument because I have to focus on this.
Yeah,
that takes courage, as it takes courage to leave one of the iconic bands of the last, decades. That takes courage.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's life, Yeah, I think it happened in a very natural way, With Brad, we had been playing already for 10 years, and we've developed a sound that was beautiful, and we got a lot of audience to really appreciate it. But yeah, there was a point where it started feeling a little too easy. It just felt like, I think for me. And Brad really felt that I was just so much in love with the piano and so much, and also, it felt like the piano thing, it was complicated for me to spend enough time at the piano because when I was on the road, so I didn't have access. So sometimes I was carrying a keyboard, which was a pain in the ass and still unfulfilling. And then when I got back home, my wife then, she was like, okay, you've been 1 month out and now you're going to go on to play the piano all day. Come on, you need to deliver at home,
Yeah.
Which was right, rightly so. But, then when I'm going to play? Never,
Yeah.
So, it just, there was a point where I think Brad also felt that it was nice to have a change. So it wasn't like I said, like, okay, later, no, we just, it just became obvious that would be nice. And it was like something that it's ripe to happen. And it happened very naturally and with a lot of love and everything. And so I think it was great because, with Brad, the new trio is a completely different thing. So it's a whole other phase and develop a completely different sound. And for me, then suddenly I could just really put the piano at the center of my life. And then is when after doing that for a little while, I started writing too.
Yeah. How closely were you following Brad's new trio then?
Well, not a lot, actually. I mean, I heard them and I was very familiar with the music and I enjoyed them and I heard it, but I felt also consciously that Brad wasn't one of my models as a piano player, and I was so focused on just learning that I was looking for other models, and we've been playing so much that I felt that I couldn't even escape Brad's influence because I wasn't even trying to escape it, but I was like, Brad was in my course. We've been playing so much that it's like, okay, that I'm so grateful and I learned so much from him, but that's already there, So yeah, that wasn't the point. It was a little bit what I wanted to do was other things, And so for me, yeah, I look for models or things that would be more available for me with my level of chops at the piano, more minimalistic stuff.
Yeah. I'm curious about the trio with Brad in terms of certain topics. Like I really felt like you've created together a really unique rhythmic language in terms of playing or feeling free within odd meters, and also playing time versus playing pulse in faster. In faster tempos and tunes, and I'm curious how you worked on that and how you developed it.
I don't know. A lot of it is just very intuitive. It's just what happens when you add the sounds of certain musicians. You put them play together, and things just go in certain direction. Just because whatever affinity or musical territories these people tend to share, or I remember the first time I played with Brad, right away, like after like 4 bars, I felt like a strong connection. I felt it's like, man, like this, whatever is this lightest nuance that I do in my cymbal or the little accent, he got it.
Yeah.
And I could feel that he understood it, and it wasn't that he would respond immediately. Of course not. No, he was still very much doing his thing and developing his ideas in long term. But I felt that it affected, and anything I did affected his next phrase. Like he would take note. Okay, that's part of it, and that it wasn't, just felt that he's a very deep listener, and a very generous improviser that makes room for everything and welcomes any material. That was a big thing for him because I think the way he played, and he would also tell me, like, or he would play something and kind of wait for me to come up with something. So I think his playing is very conversational and very, and he needs to be fed ideas, and I think a lot of it is melodic ideas. And I think especially for a trio, if he had a horn player or another soloist, then the drummer can be just tipping, and he can have that conversation with the soloist. But if he's just trio, okay, yeah, he can get things from the bass, but rhythmically. And so I think maybe that's what happened, And as a drummer, it's funny, I've never really thought of this way. but now today, as thinking of it, I can really see that, I think Brad is really fascinated by melody, and rhythm is a big part of melody, Before we were talking about the harmonic aspect of melody, but the other aspect is just that, the shape and the rhythm and the phrasing and the dynamics of that. And I think that that's kind of the essence of one of the things that the way I approach the drums that maybe makes me sound different from other drummers, I think on the drums also there is plenty of people who has more chops or that has studied other things, even Jeff, for example, who I totally love, and that's why I'm playing with him in my band. But he's has studied a lot of rhythm history, and African rhythms and Middle Eastern and Latin American rhythms. I've done some of that, but there is no comparison. He went way deeper than me, and so it's a different approach. But I think what I do have is probably because playing trumpet and my thing about, I'm very aware of the importance of how to make melodies and how a melody is not necessarily eighth notes or quarter notes. It's just a shape, and dynamics and the curve and how how something can be more angular or more round and how you pronounce it, all that stuff. And it's intuitive. I don't think, especially now, I wouldn't even 20 years ago when this was going on, I wouldn't be able to talk about it in this way. But I think intuitively that was what's going on, because by then I had been a trumpet player for 10 years. So it was like really in me, the way I hear music, and so I think that was what's going on. And also the fact that I was so much in love with the sound of the piano that made me dynamically play in a way where I would let that sound come out, like I wouldn't cover it with sound. So I think that's something, the things that are important for me that I think can really help. And I remember with Brad even having a little bit of this argument, because I remember for a second, when I was like so intense with the piano that he said, but what's going on, dude? I mean, so are you getting bored? It's like, are the drums boring? You get bored playing with me in the trio, or what's happening here? And I was like, not at all, man. I love the piano, but don't you think if you don't practice the drums ever, whenever we take a break, it's like, I say, well, you tell me. I told him, if you think that my chops are getting weaker and that's suffering, let me know. But honestly, what I believe is that since now I'm playing piano and I'm listening piano, like my ears for the piano are opening, and I think I hear much more that I used to hear before. So the fact that I hear with more detail and more, that stimulates my imagination and affects the way I play the drums. So I think it's good. It's a good thing for a drummer who plays in a piano trio to get deeper and closer on the piano. I think, well, you got a point. And, I remember like 1 year or two after that, she telling me, Jorge, I think you were right. It's true. I hear this, So, I mean, it's beautiful. We have a beautiful friendship, and he got it. But I understand that for him maybe at the beginning, because I'm very obsessive, So he's like, what's this dude carrying a keyboard? It's such a pain in the ass, Plus for him, at the level that he was as a piano player, to have to deal with me kind of like being obsessed with like some beginner shit. And anyway, must have been a drag. But so he was very patient and supportive anyway. But yeah, I think that was an interesting thing. So I feel that that's what was happening, intuitively always. I think, I just have this tendency to phrase melody, and I like more and more as time goes by. I get more into minimalism and sparse thing.
Yeah, we have to get into that
Yeah.
later on. I want to know more about how you became so free within playing odd meters.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really think you guys, and you especially, you created an own language of playing in odd meters that became like a standard for other people to learn and to appreciate and to rise up to, maybe, or aspire to getting closer to that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think we did that together. I wouldn't say that, yeah. I think that that language is definitely the combination of the three of us, of Brad, Larry, and me, because what happened is that, yes, maybe I was the initiator of that, like I had this thing, like having heard, especially, a little bit Tane and Bill Stewart, who were both, playing in 5/4 and 7, and using subdivisions of quintuplets and 7 a little bit, that opened a little bit the palette of what was used before, no? Which mainly everybody else, it was just like 3 against 2, which there is so much there already, but playing 3/4 or 6/8 and triplets. So this opened it a little bit more. And so, yeah, I was like the nerd drummer in that sense. Yeah, that I would bring that nerdy, more disciplined way of studying, that more methodical. So I would like, starting to see these relationships, mathematical relationships. Like how the thing I didn't know what time it was. Like to do 4 equal in a 5/4, shit like that. That's very basic. But that in that moment it wasn't. You would hear that often. So I took care of that, and I would practice that in an extremely methodical way at home. Actually,
like what? Like how would you do it?
Yeah, well, basically, I would put the metronome extremely slow, as slow as it went. Then I didn't have digital metronome anyway, so the slowest was 40. And then. I would be alone in the basement, in Brooklyn, Sackett Street, and then I would hear the tune. Either I didn't know what time it was, or it might as well be spring, which is a very long form, and especially when you put the metronome at 40, like each chorus is a long time, So yeah, basically what I would do is just play the tune, and then part of it would be to find a pattern that would work for the tune, especially for it might as well be spring, because that was like a mix of songo, but in 7/4, kind of like, the Afro-Cuban and Cascara. But so the little bit that I knew about Latin rhythms, applying it to 7/4. But the other thing was just that I felt, I was very conscious. I would like to feel as loose in 7/4 and 5/4 as I do in 4. So I should be able to play over the bar line. So then I would just take very simple patterns, like, so if I just play snare, tom-tom, floor tom, 3 quarter notes, that's a 3/4. There you go.
Right.
So boom, So I remember that I would do it for a long time and in super slow tempo. So I was thinking probably the neighbors or whoever sees me practicing thinks that I lost my mind. It's like, this dude has been for 2 hours just playing. What's wrong with him?
Yeah.
But of course, while I was playing that, I was hearing that displacing over the form of, So I thought that was very interesting, because that allowed me also to find things that were very easy to execute, because they were not tricky, because they were very simple, kind of melodically, and technically. And also the fact that I'm doing a pattern, I would do it with certain sticking, so that comes with a certain muscle memory,
Right.
Especially when you do it a little faster. Then that's why comes the whole thing. I know I'm jumping around a lot, but
it's fine.
Basically the idea is that you get used, or you discover how 3/4, for example, sounds or three groupings, no, like a 3/4 sounds on 7/4. So basically, how you to play 7/4 or 5/4 in groups of 3 or in groups of 7. So just mix groupings of notes in different meters. And then again, how you discover? Well, by just spending time doing it. So I would just, and then I thought that was a great exercise because at the same time you are reinforcing how to hear the tune, you know, because if you try to hear groups of 4 bars of 3/4, how do you do it? You do it by counting bars. First is boring, and then you have to be concentrating, counting bars. But if you have a 4, then the harmony guides you, you know. You have a harmony that you know that is 8 bars or 16 bars, and then comes the bridge. So the harmonic rhythm is what is telling you the number of bars, and then what you're playing on top of that harmonic rhythm, the figure that displaces. And how do you keep that figure? You keep it because the muscular memory. A lot of it is also with paradiddles. No, you have a 5. No, right, left, for example. No. You can do the regular paradiddle, or if you just do double rolls, that's a 4. That's already an idea of 4. You do that in triplets, displaces, no? Or you do right, left, right, left, right. That's the 5 typical, no? With that, you got a 5 idea, and then you know that with the right is going to be like that. So anyway, it's a very recognizable sound. If you put, the right, for example, in the snare, and the left on the tom-tom, and you do, it's like the A flat is the tom-tom, the A is is the snare. So you get something so your body mechanically, by muscle memory, and because the sound of the pattern is giving you the sound of the 5, and you put that in triplets or in 8th notes, in a 7/4 bar or in a 3/4 bar, whatever it is, and always within the form of the tune. So I thought this was a very interesting thing because you're exercising a lot of stuff, You are exercising the form of the tune. You are getting into the tune because you're working on a tune, but you are working on rhythmic displacement of patterns. And also the fact that you're playing something very simple and you spend a long time because you want to see the whole cycle, and how many choruses it takes to start in the same place. Oh, every 3 choruses, or in this case, every 5 choruses. So also it's just an exercise in pure focus, not really like a meditation. Just stay focused on the tune for a long time, So you're working on a lot of things. It's a very holistic exercise. That's basically all of it, I did variations of that. I did these for about 2 years, 93, 94 is when I did this stuff, or 94, 95. And after that is when I basically stopped practicing drums. But that was the last stuff that I practiced in drums. And it was good. And then I started feeling a little bit more comfortable, like starting phrases and that. And then what happened is that Brad didn't do any of this, but I would bring that to the table, and he's got great ears. So he would, intuitively play off that. So I think I initiated a little bit of this thing of how to opening, how to start phrases in a part of the bar that you naturally would never, especially when you are not used to. But that's the thing is that the fact that you're displacing a rhythm is going to make you mathematically to start phrases in every place of the bar, So it really opens it up. So I would initiate that, and then Brad would just fill it, and Larry would be the anchor, So he would have this support. So Brad would take just these real chances many times without being sure, especially at the beginning. It's like starting a phrase with me, kind of like following it, but he would know that Larry would, and he would say, it's like, I'm relying on you guys, So it just happened very organically, but we didn't talk too much about it at all, all this. It was just in my mind. I did all my homework at home, let's say, and it wasn't even homework. I was just curious about this. This was like, the kind of things that I was curious about developing my rhythmic ear. And then Brad intuitively consciously, but very intuitively did in his way. And for me, responding to his phrasing, and that I think, so that's why I really feel that we develop a way of phrasing together, you know. So it's like this, you cannot say what's first, if the hen or the egg, you know. So, I was the initiator a little bit of the idea, and I the one who would bring like the kind of scientific or practice thing a little bit. But Brad's ear
Professor
is so
Rossy.
fast. Yeah, nerd drummer. But Brad would just totally eat that stuff up, you know, and then come up with all his, you know, great phrasing and that, and I would react to that. So
that's cool.
It was really fun.
Very interesting. Another, I don't know if you want to comment on that, but another signature or very, very typical sound and feel of you guys is a very fast song with Larry not walking at all, but more or less playing even like the one in the bar or whatever in the bar, but you having the fast feel and the pulse, and Brad being on the same rhythmical up there level. And but Larry holding it down without playing dum 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 dum, but more like dum ba dum dum ba dum dum dum, and this would be like the feel. Is that something that you guys talked about, or did that just happen?
Same thing. It just happened, you know. Yeah, and I think a lot of it's also organically, you know, because also it just happened that when that trio took off was right after I had my problem with tendinitis, you know, that happened in 94, and when we recorded introducing Brad Mehldau, that was 95. During that year, I couldn't play more than 1 or 2 hours maximum because I had pain in my arms. So I was very much into playing without too much density, you know, to leave space. So for fast tunes, you know, even that, I could do it, but, you know, that would be very tiring for me. So the idea was to really open it up, you know. So it was more that instead of playing pulse would be to, what's the word now? It can't come to me. Imply pulse. So that's the thing. We're here in this fast subdivision and we're playing off it. But even Brad or me, we're never continuously playing eighth notes. No? So we play, our texture is based in eighth notes.
Yes.
Larry is in a slower grid, but we're not playing the grid. So it's not pattern oriented. It's more like texture oriented and melody oriented, and harmonic rhythm. So and again, all these things just happen for a mix of what we are curious about and our limitations. You know, in my case, it happened a little bit of that. I was very conscious of not hurting myself. So I like space anyway. So that pushed me in that direction. It's already of playing. Just play less shit, leave more space, and also start mixing, because these fast tempos also open the door, I think, for me to instead of playing all the time the fast subdivision, sometimes also instead of dividing with, like, you know, if I'm doing eighth notes, it would be every bar, you know, you have 8, you know, you hit 8 times if you're doing pure eighth notes. But if you know, to have slower subdivisions, you know, and even when the one is moving like that, I could do so I'm actually going to play a long quintuplet, so 5 strokes every 2 bars. So that's that really, and I think that comes into that texture too, you know, like it really opens up, that it's kind of like breeze and it's like in the air. And so then we were, the only thing that we would talk, it was this thing of trust, of thinking is like, we don't need to understand mathematically what everybody's doing. We don't need to get into it's actually exciting and nice to have 3 subdivisions. Like, you know, Larry might be playing in, half notes, no, main texture kind of, or not even that, like dotted half notes sometimes, as you were saying, leave a lot of space. And then Brad at some point is playing triplets and I'm playing quintuplets. and it doesn't match, and that's the beauty of it. It's like,
diversity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have all this, and then actually what started happening pretty fast. Actually, I was just aware that because everybody's ear, especially at this time, I think might be a little bit different. But I think it's between people who are not musicians, quintuplets and also subdivisions of 7 were so unusual that they sounded just like rubato, just sounded out of the grid. So then that for me opened the door. It's like, okay, maybe actually now I can also do sometimes 5 and 7, but I can also just fuck the grid, It just,
play rubato.
Yeah, thinking like more like the Jacques DeJohnette for me was a model of somebody like that. Elvin too, but especially those two, sometimes Tony, but these guys that I'm sure they all did these things, they play sometimes consciously 7 and that, but never in such a mathematical way as you could hear Bill, Stewart, or Tane, from that generation or the generation immediately. And this was for me the connection with that, And now, as years go by, I developed that much more. It's like, no, for me, I'm just really interested. It doesn't matter. Like, I have a pulse that might be very basic, and then the texture that I play doesn't need to be any mathematical pulse. I can use as an inspiration, close to 5, close to 7, but that's just to have like a more or less an idea of where it's going to be. But then don't worry about mathematically has to, because that just makes everything just really like that, and it's just less interesting. There is no point, I just prefer to breathe more and just have different textures. So maybe that's the contribution. But maybe something I want to say that for me made this really great, and this is really that I think we had this hookup, but I think it's really something that Brad has that I think is very important, is that whenever we did all this nerdy shit, he was still always very lyrical,
Yes.
That was an element, but it was never about that. That was just a little color on top.
Yeah.
Still, the tune was what was important, and dynamics, and the emotion and the lyrical thing about the tune, So it never became like a nerdy game, and I think that's for me the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because for me, if this thing it expands a little bit the palette of colors, that's great, but that's all it is. It's not. That's not the big deal.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the thing that calls your attention because this is different. Yeah, but for me, being different is not as important as being good.
Yes.
As sounding good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
Yeah, sometimes people lose track of things, like focusing on a rhythmic or whatever musical theoretical aspect, and making it too big, and they lose track of the music.
Or other aspects, like that aspect becomes so much that can become a little gimmicky, or not even gimmicky, but just one dimensional. It's like let's not forget that you still gotta tell a story, and it's gotta be beauty and it and that. And in that sense, Brad was extremely clear always, and I totally like that. That's for me the most important.
I feel like big impacts on your musical direction were obviously the changes of instruments, the association with Brad and all your friends from Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
And then you switched to piano, and then something that we talked about the first time when I met you, and we were living in different apartments next to each other in Basel when we played there for a week. I already interviewed you back then,
Oh, wow.
I was like, okay, this is my one chance to play with Jorge. And he just played with Wayne, and he has all this experiences of playing with my hero, and he's my hero. So I need to make use of all the minutes I could get with you. So we would go to the supermarket. I would ask you about Wayne.
All right. I'd love to talk about.
Yeah. So I think this is because I think it really changed your playing, like that experience.
It sure did, yeah.
And you've told me that story many times, but I want to hear it again. Of playing the story where Wayne told you about the most fitting thing in a certain situation.
Oh yeah.
Can you share the story again?
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I told you many times. Yeah. But yeah, it's I don't get tired of that because that was such a life changing, not only musically but in every way, you know. Because of course Wayne is like is one, or if I had to pick one, I guess would be also my hero. But no, unfortunately I don't have to. But he's of course huge influence in every way and amazing. It was really amazing. I remember going back on the plane and thinking what I lived during these 16 days. I treasure it, and I hope I will never forget it. So any chance to just retelling stories to other people is a way for me to relive it, and to find. And I also knew that I learned a lot of things, and many of those things that I learned or that I lived, they would keep unfolding and keep presenting new lessons, for me. So I felt like I was just handed a great treasure, and that would unfold for years to come. So I love to talk about it, But that story, basically I remember that was on the 9th gig. We did 10 gigs, so that was already in the 9th gig, one of the last gigs where I was supposed to have found some kind of comfort zone. but of course I was very aware that was exactly what Wayne was not interested in, any comfort zone. So, but he is definitely not into like patting anybody in the back after the gig. That was very nice, or to analyzing, or that I like that, I didn't like that. No, he's like, we play, you have your experience, you face your own fears and your own demons, and then we go to the hotel. That's it. And then the next day, same thing. And the main thing, and that was it. He really was encouraging me to play completely out of the box and out of any comfort zone that he was. That's what wasn't tolerated, kind of, in some ways, So it's not so free. It was very free, but not so free. So because you can do anything as long as you are uncomfortable, basically. No, I understand. As long as you don't trap me in any of your comfort zones, because but anyway, the way he said it, what happened concretely, that's the story, getting to the point. We played this tune. In that repertoire we were playing, there were only 2 moments where there were some comfort zones, in the sense of some kind of recognizable groove. Everything else was kind of like, each man for himself. And where is one? Who knows? Who cares? So, but there were 2 moments. One was kind of 7/4 vamp, which was, kind of comfortable. And the other one was also this kind of bass figure in one of the tunes of this suite called Starry Night, where there was a bass kind of figure that would, suggest some kind of Ponciana territory groove for the drums, very loosely, but that would come to mind for me anyway. So this is the 9th gig, and we're playing it, and it just feels so unfamiliar, just so fucked up, and then it gets much faster, and it's like, and then I just get this paranoia, in the middle of playing that. Is like, wow, maybe I got it wrong. Maybe I don't, I got the bass line wrong, and then where I've been thinking all this tour that one was, it's wrong, and I've been playing this tune wrong the whole fucking tour, because it just felt so awkward, So whatever, I get through it, we just play and the gig. And at the end of the gig, I just asked John, so John, in that tune, then I sing the bass line, and that's one, right? I said, yeah, of course, yeah. What's the deal? And he's like, wow, man, today, man, like the way these guys were playing, Danilo and Wayne, man, it was just so hard. I started doubting. It's like, oh, yeah, those guys are crazy. No biggie. So I said, wow, I still kind of freaked out. So I just went to the dressing room, and Wayne was alone. And even knowing that he never comments and probably he doesn't like, so I didn't want to force him or anything. But I just kind of dropped something. I just said like, wow, that was fun. But wow, there were a couple of moments where I really, really didn't know what I was doing or what to do. I felt like really. And he said, yeah, you know when you find something that goes really well with what the piano player is doing and the bass player and it's hip, stay away from that. yeah, Miles used to say there are many doors. You go to this place and there is all these doors and there is that one that's the awkward door. Have the courage to go through that door.
Yeah.
Because awkward, that word, awkward, when it feels awkward, you just have to come up with something. So have the courage to go through that door. And that was it. That was the, so yeah, totally unforgettable lesson,
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, so, and that's the sense I felt that for him, and he also actually told me, he gave me many unforgettable mini lessons like that, because he would never speak for a long time, but he just would say something that was like a very clear idea that he just planted in your mind and that would stay forever, and that was the other one. That just, he would say like, who are you? Just look at you in the eye and, who are you? There is nowhere to hide, just scary as hell, but what do you bring to the table? And just play anything, we'll make something up. And that was it, So for him, and yeah, the other one, it was just great. He says like, music, it's just a language. Life, that's what matters. So yeah, it's just deep, but so true, and then you realize it's not, I don't think he was expecting any musical result or, like, so that's the thing. That's why I know when he said it's hip, I know that hipness is not what he's going for.
Yes.
So that was a clue, hip. So yeah, I don't think he's looking for an experience, especially that was, he was already 79, so that's Wayne at 79, where he's, he doesn't have anything to prove, and he just wants to have explore and have an experience and have some people who are just really, something really meaningful, and it's meaning things. At least I think that's his theory. He really believes in that. To be in an awkward position or to experience some resistance, that's gonna elevate you.
Yeah.
I think I saw a video where he talks about that. Why does a plane take off? Because there is some resistance.
Yeah.
If there is no resistance, you're not gonna take off. So I see that, and it was just amazing. Yeah.
What do you think did you bring to the table when you played with that group? Because it's so iconic with their original drummer.
Yeah.
What do you think when you look back or listen back? What do you think you maybe changed in their approach?
Have no idea. I have no idea. I cannot conceptualize it. All I tried to bring, it was just energy, just to play honestly and just experience. And I felt that was just like an amazing privilege that I got, that I will be always thankful. And I tried to survive. I was in panic a lot of the time, and at the same time extremely happy and extremely fulfilled. And I so I'm just, I don't know, I haven't tried to analyze.
What was your preparation process for that gig?
Panicking, basically. I remember like, because when they told me that, they told me in January, the end of January, and it was in June, so I had plenty of time. First I was like super happy because it was like a real dream come true, not even a dream that I would dare to do, but of course, so something that made me very happy. But at the same time, I remember hearing that band before I got the call. I heard it like maybe 5 or 6 times by then, And I remember the last time I heard him in Barcelona, I remember very clearly having this thought. Actually, it's like, man, this band is incredible. It's such a privilege to be able to witness this live,
Yeah.
because it's so unique what they do, and so, but it takes so much courage, and it's not easy. And I felt it's like I love being able to watch this, and I'm so happy I'm not playing in the band. It's like, Brian, you've got this.
Yeah.
I remember thinking exactly this with these words and everything. So it was kind of prophetic. It was like, oh shit, now I got this just for a few days. What I'm gonna do. So yeah, I tried. I called the management and to see if they could send me some music. Is what are we gonna do? And they said like, well, we don't know. Things. If you want, I can send you some recordings of some gig from 1 year ago. But we're not sure if we're gonna be playing this music anyway. But here it is. So they send it. So I remember just looking at videos. Trying to learn Joyrider, especially. Because it's a hard tune, and I guess we were playing that at the end. So I work on Joyrider basically, and a few other tunes just from the videos. Try to see that, but it was just so loose.
How did you work on Joyrider? Because it's really an iconic and very, very difficult, challenging tune.
Just listen to the melody and just try to learn what was there. Try to learn the part. Try to check out what Brian was playing. But I'm sure I wasn't expected to play literally that. Any version was different anyway. So I felt that, but I felt if I really know the melody really well, then I can be really loose and play loose over it. That's the objective, but really know the material. But that was it. All the other tunes were not so hard, in that sense. But the hardness wasn't about that. It was just about just really improvising so freely and in such a decisive way, affirmative, and to the point where it's nearly aggressive. It's not like you're not like kind of waiting for something. No, you're making things happen. Very extremely proactive. He actually would say that reacting is not enough. He would tell me that at some point. That was the same idea of let's skip and stay. That's reacting. Try to find a part that goes well what everybody else is doing. It's like, no, who are you? What do you bring?
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to completely disagree and force everybody into another direction. That was basically the way of saying it. That's so. It was really life-changing, because I'm the kind of person that I don't like conflict, and I like to please everybody and to be always happy with a smile and that. And so that was ultimate challenge of saying like, that's fine, but it's limiting if you're always in that role. That's going to be kind of always the same. It's like there is more to life than that, kind of like. So let's see what's out there, So it's very important, this thing. I think that we often see ourselves and as a person musically and outside of music too. That's, I think, identity. Such an important thing, and identity is just like a fixed idea that we put, on top of us, because identity is fluctuating always. It's, so it gives us a certain sense of security, something to hold on. But do we really need it? Probably not. It's just that same thing that we can hold on and can be helpful. It's like crutches, When you broke a leg, the crutches is helpful, but when you're healed, you better get rid of them. If not, they get in the way. You can't run with them, So that's very important, I think, to forget about who we are and what we think we like and what we think we cannot do, because maybe we can do much more. And actually, I already said before, I felt all that tour like that, like a tiger was following me, and I felt that it made me play louder and more intense and out of the box than I ever played in my life. So in that sense is what I feel. I feel that after that tour, my range in every way, in terms of volume, dynamics, ideas, confidence, my range just expanded.
Yeah.
A lot.
Totally, yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. What an experience.
Yeah.
I think you had the ultimate adventure of subbing in a band. But I'm wondering what, coming out of that experience, what a more general advice of you could be for somebody to sub in a band. Not only in a band like that, but general advice. But because we all do it, and we all have to do it, and we're all facing the same thing, which is there's usually somebody else in the band who is there for a reason.
Yeah.
And for his sound, her sound, their individuality or spirit. And now you come in.
Yeah.
What are the important things to do when you're a sub?
Yeah, well, but I think it depends on the band, no? It depends. Maybe there is some band where, yes, there is very defined thing. But first, I would say, that's not your responsibility. Responsibility is whoever called you, because unless you force yourself into the band, that thought helped me a lot when I was panicking before the tour started, and I was thinking, man, I was thinking of that, like, this band is so intense, and I'm such a bourgeois guy, It's like, and Brian is playing with all this intensity, and I can do that, but I don't know if I have what it takes, and it's like. And I remember I was panicking one day. I remember I was panicking at 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep, a kind of anxiety attack, And I thought, who I need to talk to somebody, maybe to calm down, and who can I call? And then I remember, well, Guillermo Klein is in Argentina, so it's during the day there. I can call him.
Yeah.
And he was very helpful. He said, like, first thing he said is like, well, you didn't call them, right? So if it doesn't work, it's not your fault.
Right, yeah.
So that first is, wow, I was like, that's cool. You should trust them, they are good musicians. They know who they call, and so if they call you, is that they believe it's going to work. So, and of course, that playing with great musicians is just much easier because they play clear. What they play is beautiful, is great, but just trust you. Come on, just go. You're an improviser, you'll be okay, So I would just say that, just trust the judgment. If they call you, it's for that. Another thing, if somebody calls you for something very specific, and if you feel that you're not equipped, then reject the gig.
Yeah,
I've done that before too. It's like, no, man, I love this music, but I cannot play it. So please don't expect me to be. I've done that several times,
Yeah.
But this was clearly not the case, because I think it's very open band, Still, it's true that there is some things, but some requirements. But those requirements for me are much more. They are not musically specific. They are more like, like that, out of your comfort zone. Don't bring any backbeats. Don't any swing. Don't impose something on the band. Just be ready for danger and bring danger. That's a little bit. He didn't say it in those words, but I that's what I interpreted. Intensity. And so, I just try to provide that in that case. But for me, actually, a great advice that I would say, and I've been saying to people, is like, I was so lucky that I had this experience that helped me to take several steps that it really made my range and my self-confidence much bigger, Then think it's so sad that I needed this in order to accomplish that kind of freedom, because that was in me anyway. That was totally available to me before, So why did I need Wayne Shorter to break those barriers? Why couldn't I just break those barriers myself? So that's what I tell people. Don't wait till Wayne Shorter calls you. You can break those barriers today.
Yes.
Just feel free and just do that, Just feel free to disagree. Feel free to put your sound there forcefully and clearly, and feel free to be yourself. And, and maybe your sound is just 20 bars of silence, and just put that vibe and stay cool with it when everybody else in the band is figuring out why the fuck you don't play anything. It's like, well, that's what I'm hearing right now.
Yeah.
And just be brave, Don't be afraid to be yourself. I know it sounds such a topic, but it's not easy. I think we are, so funny, so much talk about freedom, and then being free is so scary. So yeah.
Wow.
That would be, I think, the advice,
Yeah.
because in terms of subbing, I think it's a very more specific, depends of who you're subbing.
And what do you expect from a sub in your band?
Yeah, well, I expect her or him to learn, to be able to connect with the music, either learning it or maybe in the moment, It also, since I choose the sub, I think I have a different expectation for different subs, Like, so it depends who I call, and it would depend on the band. It also depends on the band, the repertoire, But I'll definitely I would never expect a sub to sound like the person he's subbing for. No, I would take that occasion to expand. Actually, is like I would expect that this sub to bring a completely different point of view, that's going to happen no matter what. So, and I would expect myself to be able to enjoy that and to, So, because that's a great occasion, you don't. Fortunately, you cannot have the person that you would have liked to have there, but then you're lucky enough that there are so many wonderful musicians there, and then you have an occasion for you and for your music to try a new costume.
Yes, totally.
to have a new life. So that's what I would try, is just enjoy it. So just that, I hope, I would always try to call somebody who would be able to connect with the music. And if I feel that if I have some time to try, because if the sub stays in the band for a few days, I also will be very open to actually change the repertoire to adapt to the sub too. If I feel, instead of trying to have like a fight, if I feel that there are some tunes that don't resonate with this person, I would just drop those tunes and find what's good to play with this person, since I have the privilege of being able to play with them,
That's cool. I think the next chapter in I mean, you're always developing within every experience when you play, but I think when we talked about this before, it's like you told me like it was a big game changer when you first played with Al Foster, and he I think you said he completely turned around your view on what it means to play the drums.
Yeah.
And when I hear you then, or when I heard you then after that experience, I can dig that. I can understand.
Wow.
But I would like to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, very interesting. I guess you could relate it a little bit with this idea too, of just putting your thing, I remember that I wasn't so conscious of that, but when I was playing before this, of course I was familiar with Al Foster's playing because I love his playing for decades, but I hadn't played with him, so I didn't know how that felt. But I was aware that Al Foster has like these language things, these things that he does, which is kind of his signature. Many of them are, you could call them riffs, or grooves or patterns, these kind of melodic ideas that he might keep the same idea for a number of bars, So you can use those kind of compositionally to give shape to the tune, and for many, you can use these language resources in different ways. And he does it in a way that's very clear, but if you look at it superficially, you can think that like basically, I always liked it when I hear him playing it, but I wouldn't allow myself to do that, because precisely this thing that would mean in some ways that I'm not playing so organically with the rest of the band,
At first sight, though.
Yeah, at first sight, exactly. Yeah. You think, but of course it's like the idea of comping, like the way Duke Ellington Combs or Horace Silver, or sometimes somebody. If you think more compositionally, then that's the thing, this idea that there is the reactive kind of comping where you are really just trying to be close to everybody and to support them and to leave space or give an idea depending on what they play. That's one aspect and one part of comping. And the other part of comping is like, no, I'm just playing the tune, and I'm developing some aspects of the tune. So I'm playing these chords or I'm playing this figure because for me this belongs to the spirit of the tune and it's carrying the tune into next place or is like an element of the tune, and like some written background or shout chorus idea that you do in an orchestra, and then there is a soloist who's playing on top of that and doesn't need to relate close to that necessarily at all. So I understand that conceptually and that, but it's not something that I would allow for me to do so much on the drums. I was familiar with the concept because as a piano player, that's something that helped me because I felt that my ears are not so good, to do like Brad is really great at this thing of catching, really fast ear, just catching the perfect voicing to what the soloist is doing. I was aware I couldn't do that, so or definitely not in I couldn't just do that. I could do it maybe in a very low level for obvious things but my I wouldn't trust my ability to do that. So I understood that and I looked for ways of comping, and then I kind of discovered for myself this obvious thing, but that for me was new at the moment. No, it's like, okay, no, you can just play some kind of like some cool voicings and some stuff that you think sounds good in this tune, and then the soloist will deal with that's going to inspire the soloist, if they are listening to the comping. But you're independent, don't worry, don't let that cut your flow. But as a drummer, I felt that it's like, as a drummer, I don't have the problem, the harmonic problems or the thing, so I can really react. So I was focusing much more on reacting, or if not, grooving. So I was thinking it's either reacting or keeping a groove. But for me, the idea of playing some counterpoint melodies, that are completely independent, that for me feel too intrusive. It feel like nearly I'm competing with the melody. I'm calling all the attention to play my little cute figure, and okay, Al Foster is great. I don't know, it sounds good, but I don't know. I couldn't include that in my playing because when I felt drums, I felt that might be too disruptive, But then when I had the experience of playing and Al doing that, and then seeing how that, instead of getting in my way, was the opposite, it supported me.
Yes.
So much, because it's something that is fun. It's like an idea that's carrying the music from A to B, So it's giving content to the music, and at the same time, it's a clear figure that you can play anything with
and
that.
That figure can groove too.
Time-keeping. Exactly. Yeah, because it's a lot of it is like a riff, which is so much into what jazz and rock is made of, riffs, So it's such a simple concept, but you have to unpack it, because for me it was a mystery why it sounds so good. It's like, man, And then with time, I understand it. After I experienced it, and after I hear the recording, because on the moment where it just felt good. I wasn't even analyzing. I was too busy just trying to play.
Yeah.
But then when I hear the recording, it's like, man, check this out. He's just doing this, and it sounds so cool.
Yes.
So that really opened me a lot conceptually to play into this melodic and more independent, which goes also with the Wayne thing, no? Who are you? It's like, I'm the guy who plays this thing,
Yes.
This is my vocabulary. This is my signature.
Yeah.
Here I am, I love this, and this is part of my music, my voice. Deal with it.
Yeah. And it's a very clear statement again. That goes back to your solo beginnings and clear statements also. Why not do it at the drums,
Yeah,
as an accompaniment?
Exactly. Yeah.
But I also feel like he has changed, or he has influenced your sound a bit in terms of choices of cymbals. I didn't see
Mm.
you play Peister cymbals before, right? I mean, you were more
No.
interested or focusing on the older type of vintage
So,
cymbals and stuff like that.
yeah, but no, I think maybe I started using the Pisces a little bit before that.
Okay,
Anyway,
sorry. Maybe
yeah,
then I've
but no,
made a
no, but I
connection.
connected. No, no, no. But yeah, yeah. It's yeah, a few years before that I was, but it's possible because yeah, the fact that I switched to Pisces, even if I hadn't played with him, but of course I've heard him and I was aware of that. Yeah, yeah. No, no, I'm sure that has to do with him, of course.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah, too. Yeah, yeah, a brighter sound.
yeah,
And yeah.
it's very cool to see how you are still searching on that
Hmm.
level as well. You know, every time I see you, you have something new, and you find the different spectrums of sound within new gear.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
It's good.
It's easy.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the next chapter, maybe, or for me at least, recognizable chapter is something that you touched on before. Is working with Jakob Bro, and that's something that you already talked about a little bit, but maybe you can go into it a little bit more
Yeah,
deeply.
great. Yeah, no, no, this has been really, really beautiful because basically, I mean, I had played with Jakob before. I remember we did some gigs with Lee Konitz, but that was, comping for Lee, and it was really fun and it was cool. But then Jacob called me to play with Palle Mikkelborg and Thomas Morgan, and I had never played with any of them. With Thomas a little bit once, just in a session at my Canaans, but many years ago. And I've never played with Palle or even met him. He was super sweet. It was incredible. But the thing here is that I was subbing for John Christensen, who was a huge influence on me, because in the 80s, hearing first just, my song but also other records. I remember this one called Solstice. But I remember that just his sound, the flat ride and the whole thing. I really love his playing. But to go to the point is that what I heard, the stuff that returnings, what Jakob played with when John played with Jakob and Thomas and Palle was always out of the grid in terms of the pulse.
Yes.
And it was for me very interesting to see that many times it's like even Jakob and Thomas were actually playing in a pulse. Where if you follow them, we were playing some kind of even eight thing, But Palle and John would be completely like different dimension, Not in one tune as a special color, but all the time. That's what they do,
Yeah.
So when Jakob called me for that, I mentioned this. It's like, wow, I think I love this. But Jakob, one of the things that is very characteristic of what I love about him too, but that is just the way he is. He is totally open and to play with you too. So he's like, no, but you don't have to do what John plays. Just, I love your playing. You do whatever you want. Just, I was like, yeah, but I want to do this because this is very intriguing for me, And I love the way it sounds, so I hope that I develop that. So that opened the door for me to do that, like to play that way, which is something that I had done with Wayne. I had to do it. I was that was a big part of the menu there. But besides that experience, I only had done that as a special color for some tune, but never to think is that no, this is what I do all night. and it has been fascinating to develop that, It's now only in the last months I play a little bit with another quartet with Thomas and Mark Turner, where we played, and then in some moments I get into time there a little bit.
How different is it for you to experience your old friend Mark, which you've done so many different things together with, but also in your group, which is very different from Jakob Bro's music.
Yeah.
How cool is it to experience him in that context?
It's incredibly cool. Yeah, I was very curious because when I play with Mark, I had been playing with Jakob already for a while, sometimes with Pale, sometimes in trio, so with Larry, or also with Arve Henriksen. So different settings, but not with Mark. So I was really, really curious to see how that would feel, and it felt great, because I also remember just feeling that just in terms of voice leading, just to have Mark and Thomas Morgan in the band, that was just ridiculous, man.
Yes.
How these guys, the subtlety of their note choice, the note choice and the rhythms to everything. They're just the way these guys listen, and Jakob is just really, really incredible because it feels extremely intimate and like everybody's very aware of what everybody else is doing, but at the same time extremely independent and extremely like very chilled. It's just very intriguing. I'm still very intrigued to see how this music works, and it's very intuitive. I feel very comfortable doing it, but I don't understand exactly how it works. I'm not able to really analyze it, and I think that's part of the joy.
Yeah, that's cool. Wow.
Yeah.
And
actually had this recent, I just point out that this experience where it was this, but even to a more crazy degree, we did recently in Denmark this beautiful recording with Joe Lovano and Joey Barron on drums too, so 2 drummers and 3 bass players, Thomas, Larry, and AC, Anders Christensen.
Wow.
And 3 basses, that's not supposed to sound good. Or maybe it's supposed to sound good, but it's not supposed to be easy. And it sounded great, and it was very easy. It was completely natural.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking forward to hear that.
Yeah, that was really, really amazing experience too. And to see how also with Joey was great, I just had really cranked in my headphones to make sure that I could hear every nuance of what he played, and that way naturally everything I would play would be connected with that, so that's I have to say about, it was amazing, and I love Joey. Of course he played with my quintet too, so it's another,
but another link.
Yeah, another really strong link, like, I really love him, but I've never played with 2 drums with him, so that was the first time. But then the thing of the 3 bass players is like really, really something too, and it was incredibly inspiring to see how these 3 guys were able to share that space, and nobody seemed to get into anybody's way or tentative. Everybody just flowed. Incredible.
But that goes back to what Wayne was about in terms of stepping outside of your comfort zone. Whenever there's an instrument that is exactly the same function as you, you have to play differently. You can't do the same thing. Totally. And when there's 3,
imagine,
that's different.
Yeah. But then for me, like a great lesson for that is like, well, that's the thing. And maybe again, about if you have your identity with a certain way of playing, then you're trapped by that. But if you forget about that and you really are in the moment, then it's completely easy. You just
react to music.
Who cares if it's 2 basses or 3 bassoons? I just here is a sound. What can I add to this sound with my instrument? What do I hear? This is it, and then it's just as easy as anything else. It's just no big deal at all.
Yeah.
So that was really, really interesting to see, to experience, because it really went like that,
I think Jakob has a unique ability to, because that's something that actually I'm not mad about, or I'm not sure how to phrase it, but I think a lot of people get called to do the thing that they do these days, and always, he sounds great on blah, blah, blah. I'm going to call him because I want to do this, it's like buying a shampoo,
Yeah. Like a product.
A product. You see somebody who does exactly what you want to do, you call him and you get it. And it's even not a surprise. It might feel nice, but,
very good point.
But I think Jakob and you too, you guys have an ability to call somebody to do something different than they would usually do. And that takes courage on your side to see the potential for somebody to be different and to act within a different musical setting, still be yourself, but discover new things within yourself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But you cannot avoid being yourself. We cannot escape.
Yeah.
We're trapped in, you know. So yeah, I don't have such illusions. But definitely, since you are trapped in yourself, at least try to expand that a little bit by being in the moment and by not. Not having an illusion of having a certain identity that's kind of cool and that you better stick to it. It's like no, don't let your fantasies limit you, you know.
Yeah.
And then also embracing the uncomfortable zone, because of course if something is new, it's not going to feel exactly comfortable. It's going to feel a little you know, weird, at least, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're comfortable all the time, beware. Yeah. Maybe something is missing.
Absolutely.
But before we finish, I would like to talk a little bit about Robert and Jeff.
Oh yeah,
because
let's do it.
So yeah. Anyway, well, Robert, you know very well.
Yes.
He's amazing, you know. So it's actually when we played those 2 gigs that I will never forget, you know, with you and Jonas and Robert. Just that was amazing, you know. It really,
for us too. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, it also, I mean, I understand what you say before about Wicca. I mean, I don't know how big of an influence it is, but I know it is in the sense that I felt that you really understand my music or the way I play. And it felt like very, because we haven't played that much, you know, it felt extremely at home, you know. And also I feel also that your tunes have some properties that they don't look so simple or obvious, but then once I played them, it just was very easy. It really felt like, I could have written something like that. It just felt very, very, very close, very kind of beautiful, but kind of spooky a little bit. And with Jonas and Robert, just felt like that, like they were extremely proactive too, but always very imaginative and very listening, and just amazing support, you know. And Robert in particular, what I really liked is that he had a lot of the things that everything that I think is very important that I love to have in a bass player, you know, which many times is just to be able to play with extreme clarity, just what you need, just the roots, you know, just the structural thing. And to do that in an extremely clear way with a always impeccable sound and intonation, just, you know. But on top of that, then he also can do a lot of things that are even completely beyond what my musical imagination. Like I think he's familiar with other musical worlds that are not familiar for me. So he brings all that. He brings a lot on the table.
Yeah.
He can also play with a lot of notes and it sounds great. Never sounds too busy. It's still full of meaning. But just so that for me is just incredible to be able to play with him, because, as I said before, for a trio, you know, since I don't want to be we're less people, and I don't have Mark Turner or a frontliner there, you know. So I need more voices there, and so both Jeff and Robert,
they provide this.
They provide that big time, you know, and they also provide like the foundation very much, you know. So that's why I'm extremely happy with this trio, you know. They both are. Make it in a way that's really feels like an equal trio, you know, and at the same time it's mostly, I mean, it's really my tune, so I'm the band leader in the sense that I'm the one who provides the material that we're going to work in. So I feel that I'm very much at home, so I can develop what's the essence of whatever it is that I do, but at the same time it's completely open because both of them bring much more that doesn't belong really to my world. It completes it. It's expansive. You know?
Yeah.
This is a great expansion.
It was so great to see you guys in Basel last year. It was, and for me personally, because to see my friend Robert together with you, my friend also, but I mean together with my heroes.
You guys have a big history.
Yeah, but to see him with my heroes like you and Jeff is so beautiful, because I know what he does, but he sounds different in your group, and how you utilize him and what you bring out of him is really special. And now, having heard the record a lot of times, I really love it. I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
It means a lot to me.
Cool, Jorge. I really thank you for doing this.